everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And another great interview this week. We talked with Rich from Out of the Park Developments, OOTP, as you might know it as. And we're going to talk a lot of OOTP 22 baseball, as well as, the history of the company and the whole bit, Ron.
Absolutely. And we took some of your questions as well. And looking forward to this.
Yeah, he was limited with time, so we didn't get to ask him every question you guys wrote in, so we kind of handpicked the best ones we thought to ask him about OOTP, so you'll find those in this episode. Ron, it's episode 85.
It's the Kansas City Royals episode because it's a baseball show. They won the World Series in 1985.
And who did they beat?
The St. Louis Cardinals.
So I wonder if we have any Cardinals fans that listen in that might get a little sting from being reminded.
I remember that when my uncle from Connecticut came up for the first time, I think for Thanksgiving or one of those holidays after that World Series, it was not discussed. And he was very gracious and did not discuss the first time he came up after the 86 World Series.
That's terrible.
But yeah, we did mention that. How do people get a hold of us?
Yeah, ways to get a hold of us. Digitaltodice.com is our website. That's where we park the podcast over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423 is the text line. Digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Join our Facebook group and get in on the discussion. Without further ado, it's Rich from OOTP. Joining us on the Dice line, we have Rich from Out of the Park Developments, better known as OOTP. Rich, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
So are we.
Yeah, we're going to talk some out-of-the-park baseball today. We got a lot of questions for you about that and how it all develops and your role in the company. But we do have one question we ask every guest before we get going, and that question is, what sporting event would you attend if you could go back in time and attend any sporting event at all?
In my lifetime or ever?
Any sporting event at all.
Anything that you would have wanted.
You want to go back to the original...
It could even be something that you went to. That was our last guest actually gave us an answer of something that he would want to see again that he was there for. So,
well, it's interesting because you're asking me what it would be right now, right? And we all change over time, right? So, I've always loved baseball. Always loved baseball. And now that baseball is the centerpiece of my career, it's on my mind all the time. And so I think my go-to answer to that would probably be I would want to be at Game 7 of the 1955 World Series when the Brooklyn Dodgers broke through and finally won that championship, right? Now, I did get to see my New Jersey Devils win the Stanley Cup in person, right? So, a few years ago when I was a little more into hockey than I am right now, that might have been my answer, which is what I went to, right? So it all depends upon where you are in time. Plus, I'm a huge football fan. And even though I'm a New York Mets fan and a New Jersey Devils fan, I'm also a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And they actually won the Super Bowl for the first time a few years ago.
Yes.
But if you're asking me today, which you are, because it is today, I would say Game 7 of the 1955 World Series when one of my heroes, Jackie Robinson, helped the Brooklyn Dodgers break through and win that World Series for the very first time against the hated New York Yankees.
Now, the kinescope of part of that game has come up, and Vin Scully actually called the last out at Yankee Stadium, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Brooklyn Dodgers are world champions," and that's all he said. And people thought it was just understated Vin. He said, if I said any more, I would have started crying on the air, and that just wasn't done then.
Yeah.
So,
I believe it.
That's a good choice. That's a good choice. So you're saying that if you're new to OOTP, the Brooklyn Dodgers, wink, wink, are a good team to play? Is that what?
Well, they're not as good as the Yankees, unfortunately, but they are a good team to play for sure. I mean, that actually, a lot lot of people might think that the 51 and the 52 Dodgers are better than the 55 Dodgers. It's,
53 is, I think, what that offense was loaded. But
yeah, I mean, the 51 team that lost in the shot heard around the world to the Bobby Thompson New York Giants, a lot of people think that team really was the team that should have won the World Series that year. They had a huge lead on the Giants and just, let that one get away. All those Dodgers / Giants / Yankees teams of that era, up and down, pitching, hitting, defense, they were, so again, some people say that infield of, Billy Cox and Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson, was the best infield of all time. So, it's all subjective to a degree, but yeah, those Dodgers teams, those were loaded, man. Absolutely loaded.
Well, great. Hey, so let's start talking about how you got playing these games, Sims games, tabletop games, what it is. What first got you into gaming?
Oh, man. I remember the first time I saw an Atari, and I was blown away. I was like, what is this? Right? Because I've been a sports nut since I can remember, right? Since I can ever remember. And I've also, from the very first time I saw video games, I was just like, you know how it is, right? Something just grabs you. You don't know why, it just grabs you. Video games grab me, sports grab me. And when I sort of saw the combination of the two for the very first time, when I saw like football and baseball being played on an Atari, it was just a thing. Now, I was too poor. My family, we didn't have money. Video games are expensive now, but they were even, relatively speaking, even more expensive back then.
The price of those games have not come down.
No.
At all.
No.
$1 not worth as much, but no, it was 55.
But in 1979, I think they were still $30 a game, which that's a lot of money. Yeah.
My mother shelled out $50 for the world's worst Pac-Man game.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I remember that. That's a story I've told my son a bunch of times when I bought that game and how disappointed I was with that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. I had a friend whose dad was a doctor, right? And he had the Atari, and I would go over to his house and I would beg him if I could just play it for a little bit. So that's how I first discovered video games. So then, a few years later, I got my own, probably after the crash, which I didn't even know was a thing. When you're a kid, you don't know this.
I didn't know it was a crash either till I was an adult.
Right. Exactly, right? So we got one, and then I remember I got an Apple IIe when I was like 11 or 12 or 13, right? And there was this game called Micro League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. It changed my life in that it was a game that wasn't about pressing buttons at the right time, right? It was about managing. So here I am, I love baseball, and now I can actually create a lineup and bring in a relief pitcher, and it's real teams, like real teams with real players. I learned baseball history from Micro League Baseball. That's what taught me that the 1927 Yankees and the 1955 Dodgers and the 68 Tigers and the 68 Cardinals, I didn't know jack squat about that until I played Micro League Baseball, because it had all of these great old teams from the past.
For Christmas one year, because that's how I cut my teeth on sim games as well, someone got me the GM input your own teams things. Oh. And we had a copy. I had a copy of Neft & Cohn's Encyclopedia that we got at the bookstore at the neighborhood mall, and we pumped in teams and sporting newses and got in fights with friends about who should be on the best team.
The general manager disc took what was something great and completely exponentially blew it out, because you could then have seasons with stats being tracked. Again,
yes.
These days, kids watching this will be like, what are these guys talking about? Like, that's like, this didn't exist. You didn't have real teams. You didn't have real players. You didn't have stats. You couldn't modify lineups. You couldn't play seasons. You didn't, that was not a thing. And so that was my introduction to video games and to sports video games in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal. I remember on the Sega Genesis when you could actually play a playoff series and you could, it would keep track of the games. It didn't keep track of the stats, but I mean, most of these games were one and done. You would play one game and that was it. And there was no stat keeping and there was no championship. It was just you played a game and that was it. Hey, thanks for playing. So,
I had notebooks, right? So I was playing seasons and championships, but I was playing them just by writing down the results. The game didn't have any of this stuff, but I had everything, in my notebook, and I had, I created franchises and had seasons and stats and halls of fame. I was, insane with that stuff. And but that's what I did, right? That's what that it was, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was glorious.
Yeah. I like hearing this when we have the guests on. I like hear how they get involved and stuff in the games they played, and everybody's a little different, and it's fun to see the excitement come out when we talk about the games that we first started playing and the whole bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's flash forward here. OOTP, Out of the Park Developments. They have the baseball game. When did that first come out now?
Oh, the very first one came out 22 years ago. That's why it's called Out of the Park 22. Some people think it's a year reference, and they're like, why do you do it a year ahead? Like, no. It's the 22nd version of the game. So, yeah, 22 years ago, the very first one came out. A fellow named Marcus Heinsohn, who to this day is the lead designer, leader of the whole organization, he created a game. He was a computer programmer. He didn't sort of like the offerings that were out there for simulations, back then. So he created it, and for the first few years, it was just sort of his little project, right? Like the internet was barely a thing. You know what I mean? Like it was sort of I don't want to call it a side project, but it was a small project. And then after the course of a few years, enough people sort of learned about it and discovered it, that became something that he actually was able to create a company off of. And there's really three eras of Out of the Park, right? There's the origin era, where it was Marcus on his own just making this game and distributing it to basically friends and family. Then there's when it became an actual, a real franchise that was like available for purchase on the internet.
I think I bought two, if not. Yeah. So, which tells you just how long ago that was. So,
yeah. And then the third era is really, the MLB era, which I know we're going to get to, which is when we became licensors of Major League Baseball, and that, so those are really the three eras if you look over, over the 22 years of the history of the game.
Okay. What are some of the big differences in the game now compared to back then?
Oh,
I mean, just some of the highlights.
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Yeah. No, I mean, the short answer is, there's no comparison, right? And I'm not trying to be a hype guy, right? I'm just being realistic. There's no comparison. Like, Ron, if you bought Out of the Park 2 and somebody put Out of the Park Baseball 22 in front of you, you'd be like, this ain't. I don't know what this is. These are both cool, but they're not the same.
But they're not the same. Dave, we had to go to a third-party site to get a database to import into OOTP 2 or 3 or whatever the first one was, the Lehman database, which I think was the forerunner for Baseball Reference, right? Isn't that Sean Lehman?
Mm-hmm.
And the game would take those stats and convert it into OOTP form. It certainly wasn't a schedule. There wasn't any ballpark. It was a stock picture of Turner Field, which was new. Mm-hmm. And reversed because the company was being run out of Atlanta at that point, wasn't it?
Well, again, I wasn't. I've been affiliated with the company for about 7 years. So
okay, I think the company was being run out of Atlanta and Germany at that point.
Well, it's always been based in Germany because that's where Marcus and Andreas are from. Andreas is the other co-founder of the company.
And so you got one chance to import it, and if that was that was that. But it was cool because you could create your own self, and you could sit and bat behind Carl Yastrzemski in the Red Sox lineup.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question without being hyperbolic, right? Like the game today is a fully immersive, beautiful 3D experience that has the entire history of baseball in it. The original games were basically kind of like micro league baseball, right? You had a season and you could run a season. And you can manage a game and tell a guy when to bunt and when to steal and when to pitch out, and stuff like that. But like it's so different in so many ways that it's not the same thing. Although again, at its core, right, the baseball strategy, the essence of the game is the same, but the experience is completely different.
Okay, let me see another question here from me. I'm a casual baseball guy. I think I had 20. I don't think I had 21. Sell me on 22 as a casual guy, and then sell somebody who's been playing all along that bought 21 on 22. What can I expect as a casual guy in 22, and what can the hardcore guy expect in 22?
Okay, so if you're a casual baseball fan, Out of the Park Baseball 22 is the best version ever for you because it's easier than ever to jump in and get started. So one of the ways that, and this wasn't by design, it just happened. We have a mode called Perfect Team, which is actually probably the best tutorial for the game that you can have. So Perfect Team is an online persistent mode that allows you to very quickly assemble a team, right? A full roster, 26 guys, pitchers and hitters. It allows you to very quickly assemble a roster, create some lineups versus lefties, lineups versus righties, pitching rotations, set your bullpen. Like, if you're a casual baseball fan, this doesn't sound intimidating, right? Oh, I want to adjust my rotation. I want to define a closer. I want to define a setup guy. I want to define a long relief guy. It allows you to sort of take a group of players and put them in a position to go play baseball. And then once you do that, then you're automatically participating in a full 162 game season and playoffs starting every Monday morning. And every 30 minutes, a game simulates, and you can see the results and the box scores, and you can be like, oh, this guy's pitching well, oh, this guy's not, and you can make adjustments and stuff like that. And so it allows you to experience the core essence of Out of the Park Baseball, which is, setting your strategies and managing your team and running a team without having the other aspects of it, like your finances, your scouting, your free agency, your trades, your minor league clubs, your Rule 5 drafts, all of those things that are real, that happen in real baseball. Perfect Team lets you get started experiencing the core of the game. And then once you play that a little bit, then a lot of people then, graduate to then moving on to the bigger part of Out of the Park Baseball, which is literally running an entire franchise, from the top down, whether it's a team right now in 2021 as they are, or any team in history all the way back to before 1900. You can pick any team and run it forward.
Now, can you pick and choose what you want to do to run a team? Like, I'm not big on salaries and caps and all that other stuff. I kind of just want to do some basic stuff. Like, can I have the computer kind of handle all the...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the many things that Out of the Park is known for is your ability to create your own experience, right? So if you don't want to worry about allocating money to your international free agent scouting, right? You can just say, you know what, I want the AI to handle these 5 things. I'll handle this thing, right? And if you have more fun sort of sitting in the dugout and managing the games, you can do that. Or if you're like, you know what, I don't want to manage the games. I just want to run the organization. I want to click a button and have a month of results go by and then look at that. You can do that, or anything in between, right? So, you can have... and again, I sound like I'm a marketing guy, but you can, it's true, right? The proof is in the game.
Yeah.
You can design your experience to be whatever you want it to be in terms of what you do, what you don't do, what the AI does, what the AI doesn't do, as well as the difficulty of it, right? Like, some people really want to be challenged, right? They want to come up with really good trades that would be accepted in the real world. Other guys are like, you know what? I want to give you my AA third baseman, and I want you to give me Mike Trout. Right. And so you can even set it that way. Again, so it's not only you can have different things be run by yourself or someone else, you can also really alter the difficulty to make it as realistic or as ridiculous as you want.
So there's like a commissioner mode, like in the franchise hockey, so you can force trades in the whole bit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you want to.
How else do you think you'd get Mike Trout for AA scrub?
Well, I just wanted to ask because I played the hockey, but not so much the baseball. Can you modify the league? I know in the hockey league, you can add teams, you can delete teams, you can move teams around. I mean, so you can do all that now?
You can create, and in fact, we did a lot of that last year because obviously when the world blew up last year and everything shut down, and in April and May and June when there was no baseball, we started working with a dozen Major League Baseball clubs who knew of us and they reached out to us, and a couple of these are public, like Gabe Kapler and the Giants. We work with them. We work with the Minnesota Twins. There's articles out there about that, so I'm comfortable saying that. Because Major League Baseball is trying to figure out, well, what is our season going to look like? How many games are we going to play? what are the divisions going to look like? Are we going to so we actually helped major league clubs create these universes where we created these different divisions and different schedules and all that stuff so that they could at least, right, just have an idea, what is this going to be like, right? So there's incredible customization. You can create your own, if you're one of those guys like me who's like, I think it's ridiculous now that we have interleague play for, we should just have the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Phillies, the Orioles, let's just get all these teams in the division and do this the right way. Like, you can do that. You can go absolutely bonkers with how you set up your league. You can customize it.
You can be 100% fictional too. I mean,
absolutely.
And have, if you want to mimic in 2021 baseball from 1985, you can do that in this game. Or if you like home runs and strikeouts, then you can mimic 2021 and 1938 or whatever it is. And so it can be whatever it is you want it to be. It is the ultimate baseball sandbox. I played around with it last night, and the 3D engine, you guys have come so close to actually mimicking the show as far as graphics are concerned. I mean, I think that's the one thing that's been talked about in all sports sim forms is I want to play a sim game that looks as nice as Madden. And you've come awful close to that now.
And we're still working on it. I mean, my goal and our goal as an organization, right, is to have the visual experience be as good as it can be every single year. And what's funny is some people love that, and some people are like, "You guys, I don't care about." I'm setting lineups and pressing buttons and simulating all of that stuff, right? So, but we want to be, and I'm not trying to sound whatever. We want everything that we do to be the best at what it does, right? And so we want the baseball engine to produce the absolute most realistic results, right? We want in managing a game in-game to be the most authentic. We want the visual experience to be the best possible experience. Like, I've got some crazy long-term goals, especially when it comes to visuals, to where you're going to be managing a game and you're not going to be able to tell the difference whether you're watching a real live Major League Baseball game or you're playing our game. Now, granted, that's years down the road, but we have long-term vision for a lot of different parts of our game, and that's, it's very nice of you, Ron, to say that, and I appreciate it. But that's what we're going for. Now, I've got the show on the PlayStation 5 and I'm playing it, and it's awesome. And we don't look quite like the show, and that's okay. We're not there yet, but we want everything to be the best that it can be, and we keep working on it. Like, we keep upgrading the visuals both every year, but even during the year. We release updates to make the player models a little better and the 3D animations a little smoother and stuff. By no means are we where we want to be. But again, if you look at Out of the Park Baseball 22's 3D experience compared to Out of the Park 20 or 18, it's huge leaps forward. I mean, in Out of the Park, 19, we just had these little chess pawns, right, that would just move around the field. Now we got guys running and throwing and diving and catching. Even in the course of 2 or 3 years,
the recent stuff in that is incredible. Yeah, the first set of animation kind of looked like Tony La Russa baseball a little bit, but it was something. It was not just a pawn; it was a moving guy.
It was something.
It was something.
And something is better than what it was before, which is better than what it was before. Before we had the pawns, you would just see the baseball diamond and a ball would fly through the air for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Did I see something?
Hey,
look, I'm not making fun of it. Like, that's what we could do at the time.
At the time, can you create yourself or create a player in this league?
Oh, absolutely.
You can.
Of course.
Okay. And can you put them on the Red Sox or
whatever you want?
Okay, that's good too. Now, your fictional teams. Let's just say I set up a fictional league and I like one of the teams that I have. Can I import that fictional team into a season? Yep. Wow. So this really does everything, huh?
That's new, though, isn't it? You haven't been able to do that before, or how long have you been able to do that?
A couple seasons we've been able to do that. You can import teams. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Let me get back to my original question. So, what is between 21 and 22? What are some of the notable differences between 21 and 22?
So there's a bunch. some of the big ones are we have brand new 3D stadiums for every Major League Baseball team, right? So if you just play a game in Camden Yards and Out of the Park Baseball 22 versus Out of the Park Baseball 21, the difference is stark. It looks.
Yeah, I was playing a Nationals game last night, and I was utterly blown away by what you were able to do with that.
Yeah, every Major League Baseball team has a brand new stadium. Brand new, right? It's not up-resed or modified. It's a completely new stadium, as well as all 10 of the KBO clubs, because we also, for the very first time ever, have the KBO license, which is the Korean baseball organization. So a bunch of brand new stadiums, which really just, again, look great. The old stadiums were fine too, right? They look fine, but these new ones take it up a notch. So that's a big one. I mentioned the KBO license. That's brand new. That's a big deal for some people. It's a non-deal for other people, right? It's fine. In a game as big as ours and an audience as broad as ours, right? You're gonna announce some things that some people are gonna love, and some people are gonna be like, I don't care, I don't play the KBO. But KBO is a big deal, right? It's a brand new license, which gives us a whole new layer of authenticity, new rules, right? Baseball is different. They have ties in the KBO. They have a different playoff system. Like, that's all now in the game. We have a whole new coaching staff implementation. So when you're running your major league organization, your coaching staff is a lot more important this year than it was last year in terms of two important things. Number one, cohesion, how tightly the different coaching staffs, process matches yours in how they approach the game, as well as the skills they bring to teach the players, right? Some coaches are better at teaching certain players better base running or better defense or better hitting, right? So that's all new as well. So those are a few of the sort of the big items. There's a whole bunch of little ones, like, again, we're constantly updating the 3D animations, the player models, the lighting, things like that. So there's a whole bunch that's new just between last year and this year.
The new minor league system I saw was implemented to no more PCL, and that's AAA West or whatever.
Yeah, we're tweaking that because that continues to change on the fly as well. One of the challenges is that a lot of stuff changes on the fly these days in baseball. We're doing our best to keep up with that.
Is the Cuban League new this year, or if you had that before?
No, we've had that before.
Okay.
Yep. But it's not licensed, though, right? There's a difference between the license.
Right.
We've had the KBO before, but it was never licensed. And being licensed gives us access to information and data that we didn't have before, as well as access to logos and images and teams and players and stuff like that.
The European League's licensed, or just MLB and KBO?
Excuse me?
Are the European leagues licensed, or just the MLB?
Okay, so MLB and KBO are the only licensed.
Okay. But theoretically, you could play as the Japanese league, the Italian league, the Dutch league, and have this great big thing. Now, this is the first year you've gone to 64-bit as opposed to 32-bit. This is going to get wonky. What's the difference, and what are you hoping to introduce in the future now that you can address a lot more memory and stuff?
Well, I mean, really, this is one of those things that for most people, 64-bit won't make that much of a difference, if any difference, right? But for a certain group of our fans, especially, for example, online league players, we have online leagues, and over the course of 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 seasons, those file sizes get huge, really big, right? And so, there have been a very small but an important subset of our community, and I say important because these are like some of our most dedicated fans, right, that have these, long-time online leagues. And as those files got bigger, it became harder and harder for, PCs and Macs just to manage those. So by going to 64-bit, that's really what drove that. You know what I mean? And again, that's an example, and I'm trying not to hurt my hand, pat myself on the back too much, but that's an example of, while that's not going to drive, new sales or make flashy headlines, that's the kind of thing that we want to make sure that our most dedicated fans who have been with us for a long time understand that we care about you guys, we appreciate you guys, and we want to make sure that you have the best possible experience now and for the next 20 and 30 years. So that's why we did the 64.
All right. Well, that actually dovetails into my next question, is that the company was sold in the last year or two to Gamer to Go, a Korean operation.
Gameville Come to Us is the name of the company.
Okay. And with the addition of Perfect Team, there has been some concern in the community that OOTP is just going to go more and more into the Perfect Team direction and away from what it does now. What are some of the good things about this new collaboration you're doing, and allay some fears about the future of the game?
Well, I mean, I don't like to talk. I like the game to do the talking for me. And as I've been yapping for over 30 minutes, you might say, of course you like to talk. You've been yapping for 30 minutes. But the reason I say that is when we made the announcement of the acquisition, we said, look, guys, this is going to be very good for the game. There's going to be more resources and more people. That's just talk. What happened is, I mentioned, we have, 40 brand new stadiums this year, 30 MLB and 10 KBO. That came from Gameville Come to Us. That came directly from them. Would not be there if it weren't for them. That has nothing to do with Perfect Team. That's only accessible in the franchise mode of the game. So that's the very first of many examples of how the acquisition is going to make the core game better. So, the KBO license, right? That's a big deal to a lot of people, especially in Korea. Maybe not a whole lot of people in North America, although there's definitely a whole bunch of North American baseball fans who are really excited about that. Never would have happened without Gameville Come to Us, right? We don't have the relationships. We don't have, there's no one at Out of the Park who speaks Korean, right? Like that's just, there's literal language barriers in addition to geographic barriers that would prevent that to happen. So those are just a couple of examples of where the acquisition directly made clear improvements that have nothing to do with, Perfect Team and people's concerns about that. So, and then to the second point, right? Like people concerned that Perfect Team is going to overtake it. Well, not on my watch. I can tell you that, right? Like Perfect Team is really important to us. It's really important to us for a lot of reasons, right? And it's Perfect Team, is one of the reasons that I'm able to work full time at Out of the Park, right? Because prior to Perfect Team becoming a thing and, the revenue that it generated, right, we were only able to make money by selling copies of the game. When you're able to make money by not only selling copies of the game, but also having people, spend additional money in the game, that opens up a whole realm of possibilities. And again, the 64-bit improvement, we would never have had the resources to make that 64-bit improvement if it weren't for the revenue from Perfect Team helping our team grow and hire more engineers and stuff like that. So Perfect Team is an important driver of our business, but I recognize, and everyone at Out of the Park recognizes, and I know that everyone at Come to Us at Gameville Come to Us recognizes, what makes Out of the Park special is its core engine and its incredible history and the data. No one else in the world has that, right? It would be ridiculous for us to move away from that and to get into the kind of thing that any other game company in the world can do it. Nobody can do this one thing that we can do that makes us special and different. Why would we get away from that? But in the internet climate that we're in, people don't believe me when I say that. So I can only say, look what I've said. Like when the acquisition was made, look at what I said back then. Then look at what the results are with the first game since the acquisition. And hopefully people can see that and they can hear me talk now and they can say, all right, I get it. And so as long as I'm involved and as long as the core folks who were part of the team are involved and there's no plans for that to change, that's, we're not going to just abandon what we've spent a lot of our lives working on.
Oh, absolutely.
Chasing a little bit of Perfect Team. But again, Perfect Team is crucial, but so is the core engine and so is the core mode. They work together. If you split them apart, they both lose.
Right. How did Major League Baseball come to you? How did that get together? And obviously it's made a ton of improvements for the experience.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bunch of years ago, so the details of some of that are a little fuzzy. But basically, the bottom line is Out of the Park got known for being Out of the Park, right? Like, after a while, it's just, you see it anywhere. Like, if you read The Athletic or The Ringer or, ESPN or, Out of the Park baseball is sort of part of the zeitgeist of baseball, right? Like, people just know, oh, yeah, Out of the Park, that's that PC simulation game, right? So we got known. And basically, we got to the point where we had enough people and enough revenue to have a legitimate conversation about licensing, because licensing is incredibly expensive.
I'm sure it is.
Incredibly expensive. And it should be, by the way. Like, it should be, right? Because when you're an official licensed partner, all of a sudden you're standing at the same level as Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association, right? So it's expensive, and we got to the point organizationally where we could have those conversations, and Major League Baseball got to the point where they recognized that we had something special and unique and different. And that's how those conversations got started.
Excellent.
Okay. Hey, is there any kind of a hint or a help system in this game? So as a casual guy like me goes in, starts to manage a team, I'm getting smoked, and it's like, is there anything that prompts us to say, hey, Dave, try this, or hey, Dave, you're doing this wrong? Is there anything in there that would help me get through this game?
Nope. And the reason is our community. Our community moves at the speed of light. They produce dozens of tutorials every single week. I can't keep up with our community. They're ahead of us when it comes to what's the best way to do this, what's the best way to do that. So we gave up on that. And I don't mean we gave up on it in a negative way. We don't need to do that, because if you're having trouble in out-of-the-park baseball, it takes one Google search. And between our forums and our Discord, there are thousands of out-of-the-park fans who, if you raise your hand and you say, hey, I'm Dave, I'm new, I'm having trouble with this thing, instantly you've got dozens of people that will say, hey, I love Out of the Park. What do you want to know? I'll help you, right? There are so many better ways than us trying to spend the thousands of man hours that it would take to try to understand what you're trying to do. And so we wouldn't be able to do the stuff that we're able to do if we had to do that. So between the video tutorials, of which there are thousands every year, and the forums and the Discord, there's so many great resources where instead of the game trying to figure it out, you talking one-on-one with a person who knows exactly what you're doing, it's infinitely better. So that's how we do that.
Okay.
Now. And all the feedback has been that's a lot better than anything else.
Okay. A couple more questions for me, and then I got some listener questions. If I were to set up a fictional team, fictional league, would the computer game generate all the players, and then I could put them in? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be vague. It's up to you, right? When you go through a fictional league creation, there's a simple set of wizard screens that walk you through it. That'll say, okay, how do you want to do this? How many teams do you want? Do you want to use real players? Do you want to use fake players? Do you want to use, all of that stuff will be questions that you'll basically answer, and then it'll all get generated based on what you want to do.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to try out with some of that stuff. So you actually could have like an MLB draft, so to speak, right?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll start with a 9-year-old draft, and it could be anywhere from, I had one that was 160 rounds. And so I drafted 5, and the computer drafted 155, just because you would never get through it.
I do that with the hockey, the franchise manager hockey. That's like a game within the game is to disperse all the players and then draft on a particular season, go back to 87, 88 or something like that, and redraft. And boy, I tell you, that's so fun when you just like repick from there. So you can do that. That's good too. Let me see here. Ron, do you have anything else for him?
Yeah, I had it and lost it. Most common way to play. When we asked that for franchise hockey managers, taking current teams and trying to get them to win championships. Is that how you expect most players to play? Obviously, if you can't win a championship with the Dodgers, you play the Astros, or you're just not that good. But seriously, I want the Mariners to win a World Series. I want the Mets to win a World Series. Is that how most people play, or what can you share about that with us?
Well, there's a lot of ways that people play, because there's a lot of ways to play the game.
Right.
You break it down into really there's 3 core types of players, but again, within that there's lots of variants. Number 1, there's your start today, right? Like I want to play this year with the real, this year's guys, up to the minute rosters, up to the minute lineups, up to the minute injuries, trades, all that. That's a big bucket of people. The second bucket is the custom/online league people, right? People who create their own universe either for themselves and or with their friends so that they can experience this all together. And then number 3 is the perfect team players. Like those are the 3 main buckets, but there's a lot of crossover in those buckets, right? And there's a lot of variance within those buckets as well. But, if you break it down to the highest level, those are the 3 main types of experiences that we see.
Does the baseball game have a random debut like the hockey game?
It can, if you want it to, yes.
Okay, so that's in the baseball game. That was fun there because you could have a 20-year-old Wayne Gretzky, and a 40-year-old Brad Marchand, let's say. You know what I mean? Because it's just, again, the random debut. It was fun to see some of the newer guys that were older than the older guys, and so that's in the game too as well. Okay, let's see. All right, we do have a couple of questions here from some people.
Great.
Let's see. See, one guy says, perfect team changed the way that a lot of people play OOTP, and I suspect that it's been a huge profit game. I've changed the way that I play, and I find that I play a lot more perfect team than just manage a team in the core game. Does OOTP know what changes to gamers' preferences have changed since Perfect Season? And are there any other game modes coming out like a Perfect Draft?
Well, Perfect Draft is brand new this year, so that's in there right now. Perfect Draft is a way for you to play Perfect Team without having to set up your team and without having to. Perfect Draft is a way for you to play Perfect Team in a different way than the standard Perfect Team. In that, you're presented with all these cool cards that you wouldn't necessarily have access to unless you ripped them or you picked it up in the auction house. And then you assemble your team in real time in a 20-minute draft. You get a series of perfects, a series of diamonds, a series of golds, and then you automatically roll that into a tournament. And there's different types of tournaments, right? Best of 5, do or die, all sorts of stuff. And then at the end, if you win, you get rewards. So it's just special cards or perfect points or stuff like that. And if you don't win, then you don't get the rewards, that's okay. Then you just, you're out and it's done. So it's a way for you to really see a whole bunch of cool cards and players without necessarily owning those cards and those players. So that's new in there. So, but I think that it sounds like the core of the question is, did we expect Perfect Team to change the game as much as it did? And I think the answer is both yes and no. We knew that introducing Perfect Team would be a game changer, because we just knew that there would be a combination of people who played out of the park for a long time that would love it because it was different. And we knew that there'd be a new influx of players who had never played out of the park because they were intimidated. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me, I didn't really play out of the park baseball until Perfect Team because it was too intimidating. As I sort of said at the start, Perfect Team is kind of a nice tutorial for the regular game, but it also, in addition to being a tutorial, it's also an online competition with other people who love baseball, and that just gets a lot of people excited. So what we've seen is a whole lot more people come to the game that were drawn to it because of Perfect Team. And yeah, it's definitely been a game changer, but I mean, it's a game changer in a positive way, in that it has added more revenue to the company, which has allowed us to hire some more people to make everything bigger and better.
Okay. Kind of a technical question here. And I'm going to read it because I don't understand it, but Ron understood it.
He does, but I've also played the game for 20 years, so I know what he's...
All right, so I'm just going to read it verbatim here. Okay. Does the OOTP simulation model use a mean reversion assumption, or are future results independent of past results? For example, if a batter is supposed to be a 300 hitter but is batting 150 after the first 2 months of a season, are future simulated results going to tend to be higher than 300 to balance things out?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a programmer. I didn't write the AI. It's very secret, right? Like it's one of the things that makes it special and unique. So I don't know. And I don't want to even guess because I don't know. But I do know what I can tell you, right? And again, this is public information. Every year we go on to MLB Network and we run 1,000 simulations and we say, here's who's going to win the World Series. And 3 of the last 4 years, we got it exactly right. So whatever that can tell you is our engine. Again, nothing is perfect. It's just code. It's ones and zeros at the end of the day. But it's really good. And it's really good at and I'm not even just talking World Series predictions. I'm talking when you play out of the park baseball, you see stuff that looks real and feels real and seems real. You see Mike Trout being Mike Trout. Now if you run 1,000 seasons, sometimes Mike Trout might have a non-Mike Trout year, but most of the times he's going to be Mike Trout. Most of the times Jacob deGrom is going to be Jacob deGrom. But that's because of 22 years of making this engine and feeding it the data and stuff like that. So it's not an answer to the guy's question, but I don't know the answer, and I don't even know if I did know the answer, if I could tell you. So
it used to be that, at least for the scouting thing, that the weight would be given like 50% for last year and 30% for 2 years ago and X amount for that, and add the Colonel's 13 herbs and spices and the aging algorithm, and you could probably figure out how a player was going to do. And again, it wasn't an exact science. Has that changed over the years? I'm sure it's been refined to some sort. But I think what the question he was asking was, look, if he's hitting 150 in April and he's supposed to be a 300 hitter, is he going to hit 450 in August to make up for it?
Well, the short answer is no, but it's not based upon the computer saying, oh, he's hitting 150 in April, therefore I have to artificially make him hit 400.
Okay, I think that was how I read that. But
no, it's based on the ratings, right? Like every single player has dozens and dozens of ratings, and those ratings interact with other ratings, and they interact with the settings, right? Like you can say play it like it's 2021 or play it like it was 1968. Mike Trout isn't going to hit as many home runs in 1968 as he does in 2021, because in 1968, Bob Gibson had a 1.15 ERA, and then they had to lower the mound, right? So like there's so much that goes into this, and it's tweaked and adjusted every year, and it's based upon ratings, and we modify our ratings and how they work and stuff. So there's a lot going on.
And so what you might have done from 10 years ago is working with the game is certainly not the case today.
Some of it, I'm sure some of it is the case, and I'm sure some of it is not the case, because again, baseball changes and evolves. So do we every single year.
What are some of the oldest teams or seasons that you've played in this game?
I like to go back. I think everybody, it's almost a rite of passage to go back and play the 1927 season with the Yankees, right? Because that is that most storied team. I've also had a lot of fun the last couple of years, especially, and this is just something that I like to do. I like to go back and I like to eliminate the color barrier way before it was eliminated. And I like to just sprinkle in Satchel Paige, another hero of mine, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell into the major leagues, and that's how I like to do it. So it's sort of a combination of the real stuff and what in my mind, what should have been, right? Like those guys should have been playing the whole time. And that's what I like to do, especially since we added the official Negro Leagues a few years ago. That's my favorite historical approach.
Ron, we had a question about
we do. I think if you can't find it, it had to do with equivalency.
I mean, how is that rated? Yeah,
are they does one Negro League homer equal one Major League homer type thing? Kind of like if you look at Ichiro's career, you look at his stats in Japan. How many? How would he have done if he had done that? And I believe the questioner was it kind of they equated out to be like a good AA. Shouldn't it be closer to AAA? I think is paraphrasing.
Yeah, we're working on that.
You're working on that, okay.
And they're better this year, right? This year's implementation is better than it's been in the past.
Okay.
Next year's will be better than this year's because, again, it's all about data, right? It's data. And historically, the data that we have gotten has been implemented the way that we have it. We've made some manual adjustments moving forward. And we're also working with organizations to get the data better leveled as well, right? So this is not an excuse. We've been very upfront with this.
No.
Yeah. We work with what we have, and then we make adjustments. And I think our implementation of the Negro Leagues in terms of how the players are rated is the best that it's ever been right now, but it's not perfect. It needs to be better, and we're working on it. And that's one of the reasons that I get so excited every year when we introduce the Negro League Stars collection into Perfect Team, because that, to me, is the best representation of those players relative to other players in the history of baseball. But there's still a lot to be done there. And, we are by far not the only ones that are going to. Major League Baseball itself is going through this with how this is recognized and implemented. So we're working in partnership with a whole bunch of different resources to make it as good as
with your new affiliation with the Korean Baseball Organization, that should help too, because
everything else.
Because not every major league is equivalent to one. Does not necessarily equal one, if that makes any sense.
One definitely, doesn't necessarily. They don't, right? MLB is here,
right.
Everything else is below it, right? And that's not a negative statement, right? Major League Baseball is the world's best baseball league, right? And
yes,
should be represented as such. And KBO might be right here, right? And Nippon might be right here, but they're not here, right? Now, the absolute best players in the KBO, would they be good players in the major leagues? Of course they would be. But the aggregate of the KBO isn't quite the aggregate of MLB, right? And so these are all the things, and it's so complicated. And it's not an excuse. It's, again, we were very open with the community. There's so many factors that go into doing this. It's so much, and we try our absolute best to do the best that we can every year, but it is an ongoing evolution. We're never going to be like, all right, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We're done. It's over, right? It's always ongoing.
But it's the same as with Franchise Hockey Manager when they try to equate the European leagues with the NHL and your colleagues over at Sega with Football Manager. Good luck trying to get all that together. Right. Do you actually have a team of volunteers who volunteer some of that information or try to translate? Is that how that, for especially some of the leagues that the Japanese leagues, the European leagues, the South American leagues?
Yeah, the people are incredibly important. There's an army of volunteers who work with our employees to do this. And there's other data sources, and they are regularly changing and evolving as well, because that's what's happening in the real world, right? Like every few years you get new ratings or new sources, right? Or things like that. So again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a constant evolution. It's never finished. It's always being worked on. And, we are proud of everything that we've done, but we also recognize that everything that we've done can be better, and that's what we try to do every single day.
Right. Okay. Another question here. When will they have full historic playoff trees, not just World Series?
I don't know, because that is one of the, many things that's on our list to potentially do. So I would love to say, it'll be an out-of-the-park baseball 25. I just don't know, right? It all depends upon a lot of different things. But that is something, look, I love the historical exhibition and the historical World Series. I love the fact that you can, in 30 seconds, you can say, I want to play the 1957 World Series, and boop, 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 all of a sudden, now you got the 1957 World Series with the teams and the rosters and the stadiums and the up, like, I love that. Love it. So extending that to being not just the World Series but the playoffs would be great. But there's a lot of work to doing that. And that's why I can't commit to saying, this will happen at this point.
So you can't set that up yourself. You couldn't set up the final.
You can set that up. You can totally set that up yourself. What he's saying is, when can I press a button just get it?
I see.
Because I can just press a button and play any World Series ever, because we've got that.
Is that new this year?
No, we've had that for a while.
Okay.
But I can't press a button and say, give me the 1995 complete playoffs.
I see.
That's the only. But you can go in and you can in 3 minutes, if you know how to do it, you can say, let me set up a tournament. Here's the bracket style. And then you can say, give me the 95 Red Sox, the 95 Indians, the 95 White Sox. You know what I mean? Like, you can set all that up. All the tools are there. But you don't have to do any setup. You can just go to historical exhibition and say, let me play any World Series ever, and then boom, you're in.
I see. Okay. Another question. They had an app a few years back and stopped updating it. I believe I read from them they would do this again and go hand in hand with a computer game. Any idea if that was shelved or what's going on with the app?
No, I'm busting my butt right now to get that ready. So we're very close. It's called Out of the Park Go. We'll be announcing all the details about that soon.
Okay.
Excellent. Is there one feature? Do we have any more questions?
No, I think that's all of them.
Okay. Is there one feature of the game that you might think is maybe underused, like to see people talk about more, something that people don't necessarily think of?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's something that I feel like is ignored or underappreciated.
I think maybe is the better word.
I mean, what surprises me every year is the relatively small number of people who do play the historic modes. That surprises me because baseball is a game that's steeped so much in history. And I'm not saying that nobody plays it. There's tens of thousands of people who play it. But compared to the number of people who play the 2021 season versus the number of people who go back and explore history, I'm surprised that more people don't explore more history. But a lot of people do. So, again, I don't want to sound like I'm saying nobody does, because they do. But, again, it surprises me that more people don't do it. But that's because of me. That's more of a me thing, because I love history, baseball history so much.
And it's the one sport where numbers, I mean, you can't go and say, and even OOTP doesn't break everything down as everything being equal, but the numbers historically carry over better in baseball year to year as opposed to, let's say, NFL quarterbacks and kickers or basketball shooting percentages or that.
If you take the 1968 Jets and you play them against, the 2000 and the 2020 Kansas City Chiefs, in real life, if you took them, I think the Kansas City Chiefs would win 74-0 if they really wanted to. If you took the 1968 Detroit Tigers or the 1968 St. Louis Cardinals and they played the 2020 Los Angeles Dodgers, I think you'd have yourself a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. I think that's all we got. Rich, thank you so much for your time and coming on to talk some OOTP and OOTP 22. It was good to have you on here. Now, where can we all find the game? Give us the lowdown.
I mean, we sell it directly from our website, and you can also get it on Steam. The easiest thing to do is just Google Out of the Park Baseball 22, because if you Google it, it'll come right up, and you'll get a link that you can either get it from us directly on our website. You can go to Steam. You can see any of the tens of thousands of videos that we make and that our fans and our friends make. So that's what I tell people now. Google Out of the Park Baseball 22, and in about 3 seconds, you'll see everything you need to see, and you can go check it out.
All right, Ron, any last words?
No, I'm good. Thanks. That was very good.
All right, Rich, hang on 1 second. We'll say goodbye, and we got some parting gifts. No, we don't, but we like to say that. But anyway, Rich from Out of the Park Developed, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
By the numbers. This was episode 85 of the Digital to Dice podcast. What is it, the Nick Bonaconi episode?
No, it's the Kansas City Royals episode.
That's right.
Though, to get something non-baseball into a baseball show, Gardner.
I do the best I can.
I know you do the best you can.
It's certainly not going to be the Peter Klemer episode. That I know. Anyway, thanks to Rich from OOTP for joining us there. We had a really great discussion on Out of the Park Baseball and the inner workings of it, the whole bit, and how things kind of happen and things new.
It just grows and grows and grows, and the complexity grows and grows and grows. And I really do think that if you did a hands-off fictional league, I think you'd really enjoy it.
I think I'm going to try that. That's why I asked them a lot of the fictional questions in there. Maybe I'll even create myself and some of the community members and put them on a team and see how the Digital to Dice community team does in a fictional league.
Yeah, I know I'm going to be the starting pitcher with the ERA of 10. Thanks, Gardner.
I would have a bunch. You'd be more of a catcher in my league. Just saying.
Doorstop. Anyway,
ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
Talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.